What's up everyone, welcome to another North Leeds Jitz podcast. Today on the show we're joined by Prof Mike.
Morning.
And joined by Prof Lewis.
Morning guys.
We're over at Greater Bar Harrogate, obviously we're not in the Rio room. We're at Lewis's nicely refurbished academy.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Beautiful academy. We wanted to do it here, right? Because this is one of the most beautiful places to train, probably in the UK, I would say. Very, very different to our academy, and you've seen us in there, or if you've been watching our podcast, this is, it's gorgeous, isn't it?
Yeah, beautiful kind of like open space. It's like, it is very different to ours, but it's like,
it's very zen. It's very kind of like Scandinavian style. That's what you went for, right? Kind of very calm.
Scandi design.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah.
Lewis is the joint first most interviewed person by me.
Oh yeah, who's the most interviewed?
My friend Robert Lawson.
Oh right, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But in jiu-jitsu world, you're the most interviewed person by me. High honour. High honour indeed.
That's good, yeah. I've had the most listens on your tier one.
Last I checked you had, I think.
There you go.
Yeah,
No, well, thanks for having me anyway, I appreciate it.
Awesome,
it's good to see you both.
I don't know.
Got to see each other enough really, have we, since COVID?
No, not at all really. Where do you guys want to do this? Because I've interviewed Lewis a lot about his past and coming up in jiu-jitsu and then his philosophies in jiu-jitsu. Do we want to go down a different route today, or?
Well, we're just talking on outside. We were saying, you know, this podcast could last for 3-4 hours easy. Yeah. You guys have heard us talk about Lewis before because our jiu-jitsu journeys have been kind of aligned from the very first day. I don't know, man. Let's just see where it goes. You know, but I wanted to do it here. This is a purposeful decision to do it here. So, you know, I'd like to talk about this place as well and how we differ slightly, because we do, even though we're only 12 miles apart. We do differ in the way our academies look, the way we approach our jiu-jitsu. I think that's important. It's interesting.
Yeah. Well, I would like to know what changed from Greater Bar Harrogate. What's the journey been like since I left in March 2019?
Yeah. So, well, from 2019, obviously, when you were a member with us, Professor Jeff was still here. So it was very much sort of a fledgling club at that point. We started 2017, late October 2017, we started officially as Greater Bar Harrogate. And then kind of ran it as a side gig for, well, up until this year, really. And Jeff and I would sort of co-teach, so we had different nights, but we shared the space obviously with Big Cat Fitness and Martial Arts. They had sort of kettlebells and Thai boxing, so we shared with them. And then between sort of myself, Jeff, Professor Mike, Khalil, Adam Marshall, we all kind of managed the schedule really. But we used to have a tiny little mat in the background, about 70 square meters. And then over time, it just kind of grew, but it was very purposeful. I wasn't really pushed as such. It started out really as a place for me to
a lifestyle type thing, right?
Yeah, definitely. When Greater Bar Leeds changed, it just became like a meeting place for all of the friends that kind of left there. So it started out as that, and then I think the more it grew, the more belief I had in it that it could become like a real kind of replacement for my job, if that makes sense.
You were working full time, obviously, at the time, and that kind of how that was in terms of that lifestyle was how jiu-jitsu clubs were run for many, many years until it became almost professionalized. Yeah. We remember Victor telling us, back in the day at Greater Bar Leeds, we've got to professionalize jiu-jitsu. It's worth more than we're giving it to our members. Yeah. But you were running at that time, full-time job, new baby, wife. Yeah. Busy, right?
Yeah, I mean, for me, Victor's been telling me that for as long as I've known it. So I first started out, what's interestingly enough, there's obviously a Greater Bar in York now, but I actually started the first Greater Bar in York when I was a blue belt. Oh. And it was like a satellite club at the time, run under Professor Tom, and I had the option to take on Greater Bar York and just didn't really have the confidence, probably too young as well. I was only 22. and then left, sort of pursued career opportunities within construction, and sort of floated around a bit. And then when we settled in Harrogate, just started this place. But I think until probably a couple of years in, when we affiliated with Gracie Vaha and then it started to really pick up, then I kind of realised, all right, wow, everything that I gradually implemented, that Victor had been saying, or that kind of the Gracie Vaha method, was teaching us, rather than sort of going, it's not for me. I kind of started to embrace little bits of it all the time, and every time I did, we got better results. More people came through the door, the culture improved, and yeah, it just
was there a
grew.
tipping point, Lewis? Was it, was it a confidence in you, or was it a number of members, or was it something that happened at home? Like, what was the tipping point when you went, right, I'm now going to take this big step and make this my full-time profession? Like, what happened? And when was that?
So what's interesting is that the thing that made me decide to properly do it was that Rebecca and I sat down and we were chatting one Sunday morning or whatever in the garden, and said, oh, what's your perfect day? Like, how much money do we need to live? Like, what's the perfect day? And it wasn't fancy beach in Barbados or whatever. It was like, wake up, have a coffee, go do some jiu-jitsu, spend some time with you, blah, blah, blah. And it was like, well, how much do I actually need to do that? Why am I pursuing this career now in construction that is going to ultimately take me away from where I spend all of my best moments, which was down at the academy or with Rebecca. So that was kind of when I started making meaningful steps to leave my job.
That's such an important thing to just pause on, I think, for everyone listening, because there'll be a lot of people listening to this, members of ours, members of yours, people in Australia, America listen to this, Brazil, wherever, right? Probably in a job they don't really enjoy, or probably not living the life that they really want to live. So you decided in the garden that I need something to change.
Yeah.
But that's a big step. I've been through that process in the last 12 months. We've talked about it a lot, right? So can you share kind of how you made that work? Because for most people, they will listen to this and go, I'd like to do that. And then 5 years later, they're still doing the same stuff. So
I think
what did it take to kind of move forward?
Well, like, you know me as well as anybody, so you know I'm a hyper planner. So I didn't just think it and then do it. For me, obviously, the financial stability of my family was really important. So I basically worked 80, 90-hour weeks for probably 2.5 years to get enough capital behind me to be able to refurbish the gym, or if I needed to at that point, because Big Cat was still here, there was options that potentially I would have had to leave to get an academy that I could grow. And then obviously finding that right moment, I was at a point where the job that I was doing, it was time bound. So there was an end date in sight. And then after that point, I didn't know where I was going to get kind of stationed. So within construction, we're project centric. So if you've got a job in Leeds or Edinburgh or London or wherever, you just go where they tell you.
Right.
So we knew that I was doing all these hours. I knew that Rafi, my little boy, was on his way, and I knew that Rebecca was saying, like, listen, we can do this until he's born, but once he's here, it's got to stop. So, basically just worked my butt off. Started to put the classes on, was looking around for different spaces, and then kind of as much as what can I say, like COVID hit everybody, it's kind of been a double-edged sword for me, because it gave me the opportunity to take this place on, and it gave me the time to be able to do it up myself. So even though we had like a big hit sort of revenue-wise during that period, I was able to work my job, do this place up, and then get set like for now, so that moving forward, we've got this academy to kind of push and really grow with. Beautiful. But the mindset behind it really, I read a book called Rich Dad Poor Dad a while ago, and there's a guy called Robert Kiyosaki in there, and he talks about before you become your own boss, you have this 9 to 5, but for 2 to 3 years you need to work a 6 to 11 before you can replace it. So I always had that in my mind, where it was like, I've just got to keep going. And And I think like a lot of people think maybe with jiu-jitsu, particularly, like they don't see that, like what this is now, without me kind of knowing, just the consistency of my training. This started when I was 16.
Yeah.
Put myself in this position just by constantly sticking with one thing. Jiu-jitsu, that could be anything, what anybody does really. But
yeah, someone told me the other day, I think they'd said about me, so, it must be minted. You know what I mean? Just put this thing on. Like, people don't see how long it's taken to get to and even like the fact that you can do it with no money. Like the Gracie Bar Leeds, Round 8 Leeds was built on a shoestring budget, really. It looks impressive, but it's on a shoestring budget. But like you say, that process started way back. Yeah. And you can't just turn up on day one and just create an academy. No. Even if you throw loads of money at it, you'll get found out. You know, you've got to build jiu-jitsu, you've got to build your credibility up. And then, because ultimately we're developing people, man. So you've got to be that credible instructor who's got the level of experience to be able to pass it on.
I think as well, there was a point where when I sort of first started coaching properly here as a brown belt with Jeff, and your confidence does build. And I think it probably took me a couple of years to probably get to a point where I thought, do you know what? I am good enough now to have my own academy and do this on my own. Whereas I think when you were supported with all of your peers, like you, Down, Adam, Jeff, you know, you're only really doing one class a week rather. You sort of, you're still finding your feet, finding your way of teaching, finding your way of expressing yourself. I'm still developing now. Like, you improve the way that you put your jiu-jitsu out all the time, don't you?
Yeah, you do, mate. And it's been the right decision, do you think, so far?
Yeah, 100%. I think anybody that, like, I get this all the time as well. Oh, you know, it must be great. You just do jiu-jitsu all the time, but there's so much more than that to it. I'm probably working more hours now than I was before, or nearly as many. Probably not as much as when I was doing, 45, 50 hours a week for a company and this, but definitely doing a lot of hours. But I don't feel stressed in the same way anymore, right? Because I feel like I'm in control of my decisions. So yeah, I might not be always in control of the outcome, but I know that it was me that made that decision. Whereas when I felt I was working within a company, you only have so much control. Somebody else can always kind of say, no, we're doing this. You can't steer your vision 100%. Whereas now this place is, it's kind of.
Well, your destiny's in your own hands, isn't it?
Yeah.
So the more work you put in, the more successful you'll be, or at least you get the better chance of being successful.
Yeah, 100%.
The rug can't be pulled underneath you. Like, you could have just been made redundant at any point, right? Yeah. But if you keep putting the work in and keep maintaining that positivity and keep this place thriving, then your membership will keep coming back.
Definitely.
That's why, we talk about it. I don't know, we talk a lot, obviously, Lewis, about the business side of things, mate, because we're good friends and we do that. But like, someone asked me the other day about, is it like a year contract or whatever? I'm like, it's a 30-day notice period. And the reason it's a 30-day notice period is it keeps us on our toes.
Yeah.
It's nice for you, but it means that we have to keep providing you with an exceptional experience, otherwise you will leave. It won't be value for money for you. Yeah. And I think that's a good thing, right?
Yeah, when we first started, we tried the sort of 12-month contract thing. We had it where it was a lower price for 12 months and a slightly higher price for a monthly. So we always had a monthly option. But ultimately, it didn't really feel right for me. We chatted about that, a lot when you were starting your place up, and we'd kind of ditched it by then anyway. I don't want anybody to feel trapped in our academy. I don't want, if they need to leave for whatever reason, or they feel like they're not getting what they need from here, then they need to feel like they can,
you can be complacent too, can't you, as a business owner? Then you can right, these people are tied in. I've got my revenue, take my foot off the gas.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to go in today. I'm going to relax. No, you've got to keep pushing.
Definitely.
And keep giving them the value, for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's what we've tried to do over the sort of the last year. Even though we've been closed somewhat, we've never been closed. Like, we've constantly been building the academy, putting on Zoom classes just like you guys. Since March last year, it's been a roller coaster of like, we're open, we're closed, we're open, we're closed. But not everybody of our membership base has been to our Zoom classes, but I know that every one of them has said to me they appreciated that I put them on.
100%.
So they're like, we still did something, we still stayed connected, and we've kind of through that period, planned the best way to come out of it, which is obviously bringing back classes, pulling other coaches in, that kind of stuff. So it's good.
Nice.
Do you think, back to a bit of an earlier point, but do you think since you started off teaching here, you've changed a lot as an instructor?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's interesting because I got my black belt, and in all honesty, like I didn't really feel ready for it. And then I kind of, I suppose, wanted to relearn everything, but not relearn all the stuff that I kind of did good, but I looked at, right, I don't really do too much no-gi, or I'm weaker in this area. And so I've spent a lot of time studying other stuff to try and round my game off. And that's not necessarily just for me, but also because I don't want all of my students to be a mimic of me. I want to be able to show them sort of a full array of jiu-jitsu, so they can then become their own versions. You know what I mean?
You feel, so when you got your black belt, did you feel the pressure of the black belt, and that, was it a pressure then to learn more? Because I actually felt kind of the other way. I kind of felt like, right, that was the goal. It's always the goal to get your black belt. It was like, I've achieved that now. Now I can become a student again. Same kind of thing, right? Like, I don't do leg locks. You know I don't do leg locks really. So it's like, I need to learn leg locks. Still need to learn leg locks. Still definitely need to learn leg locks, right? But it was like the pressure was off. It was a bit like when you get your Green Beret in the Marines, like, you know, you've got your Green Beret, that's the goal. Now you're just a Marine. Now you're just a black belt. Yeah. But was it pressure, or was it the other way around?
I don't know. I think for me, because the only pressure that I felt was I knew I still wanted to actively compete. Right. And I hadn't been as active up to that point as I wanted. And I'd started stepping up my activity at brown belt. So I had a couple of things that I wanted to do. I'd actually been entered into a couple of competitions before I got my black belt. So then I got it, and it was like, oh, blooming heck, this like switches things up. And then, you know, you just have those kind of little bits of self-doubt in the back of your mind. How am I going to do? How am I going to perform? It wasn't so much pressure in terms of like teaching. By that point, the club was quite, you know, it wasn't what it is now, but membership-wise, it was quite well established. We had a good following in the gym. So I think it was, it was just that really.
More of a competitor kind of pressure to live up to the kind of expectation of that belt level, right?
Yeah, definitely, yeah. But I think I did that okay, and I'm looking to hopefully compete again this year. Maybe some no-gi as well. So just sort of push myself into a new sort of area of uncomfort, really.
Nice.
Yeah. Has your advice that you give to new white belts changed in the last few years at all?
And what is it?
There's a lot of advice you can give to a white belt, but I think the main thing is not to put too much pressure on yourself, to turn up and, like, we had this chat before, and I think maybe when we had our first interview, I might have come across, like, maybe not how I meant to, in the sense that I said, like, the goal should be the black belt. But when I say that, I mean, like, I don't want people to sort of shoot too short, if that makes sense. It's like, you can become a black belt. It's not that that should be the only thing that consumes the front of your mind all the time. But just like we said, you know, I'm here today because when I was 16, I started jiu-jitsu, and I just never stopped because I fell in love with doing jiu-jitsu. I knew from when I started at 16, I was going to get a black belt, because I knew I just wouldn't stop until I got there. But it wasn't like every time I turned up, I was in the line, like, today's going to be the day I'll get promoted. Just think that it was interesting. I shared something on my personal Instagram the other day that James Clear had said, and he'd said, if the only reason you're not pursuing a goal today is because of the length of time it'll take to achieve it, you should start now. Think of the long game. Yeah. So I just think, you know, there's so many lessons in jiu-jitsu that's not just a technique that you learn in the gym. It's about you yourself. You just need to come in and just get stuck in.
It's all about that, isn't it? We've talked a lot to our members about that, you know, because I think most people who start jiu-jitsu, obviously the first major promotion is the blue belt, and so that tends to be people's goal. But I think it's a bad goal to have, because you know, it's too short term. It takes you 12 months. There's a limited delayed gratification there, but also, like, what after that? Are you just going to, like, have your goals set by each belt level? Because that really doesn't push you. what you need to do is, like you say, set a longer term goal of just keep coming to classes.
Yeah.
And let's just see what happens and see how your life changes.
I think the other thing as well that I always say to everyone, because we bring them in, we show them around, we tell them about the grading system. And I always say, like, first thing, like, that's a guideline. 1 year to blue belt. Yeah, that is achievable, but I don't think I've ever promoted anyone in 1 year. But the biggest thing I say to people is you've just got to be honest with yourself. You can't, like, we've got some guys come in and they'll train 5 times a week. And then you'll have a guy that comes in and trains twice a week and they're wanting to know why they're not, or they're down and hard on themselves because they're not at the same level as this person. But if you can't have the honest conversation with yourself, you're kind of in denial of where you are on your journey.
And you shouldn't compare your journey to anyone else's, right?
Exactly,
it's your
yeah.
journey. If you can only commit twice a week, I had a guy sign up yesterday, Christos, lovely bloke. He's got 3 young kids. It's like the guy can only train twice a week. I only train twice a week as a white belt, blue belt.
Yeah.
Purple belt, I trained a lot because I had more time, right? And we trained a lot in the garage with Khalil and stuff. And it was a good development time for me. And that was the only year I felt personally that I knew I was going to do well in competition. Yeah. I thought I was going to win the British that year, and I took a silver and I should have won it because I knew I'd put the work in. Before then, twice a week probably wasn't enough. But that's all I could manage. So you can have those times, right?
Twice a week's better than no times a week, right?
Right.
So for me, that's what I always say to people is, look, shoot for twice a week. If you get 3-4 times a week, that's great. Don't come in and put overwhelming pressure on yourself. You want to be the guy that trains twice a week for the rest of his life, not 5 times a week for 2 years and quits. You know what I mean?
That's beautiful, yeah. Great advice.
So that's how I sort of say. And the majority of people don't want to compete. So if you're doing jiu-jitsu for mental health, fitness, to just come and de-stress from, we got a lot of people that are professionals that come and train here that, they've got quite stressful jobs. They come in, they're like, I didn't think about anything other than not getting choked out for like an hour. I go out and I'm a completely different person. Then, that's great. We've done our job.
What's the most rewarding part of running the academy for you?
Most rewarding part, it's interesting, probably there's 2. So the kids classes I love. Jeff actually pushed me into doing the kids classes. He had a guy at the base, the American base nearby, who had 4 kids, and this guy was like, I should need my kids in a jiu-jitsu program. They did it in America. And Jeff's like, look, just let them come down and get involved in the adult class at the side of the mat. So, all right, okay, I didn't have a kid at the point. At this point, I was almost like, terrified of other people's children. We came down and then, we got a real good bond with that family, and we gradually built up the class. And, to see them sort of transform, that's brilliant. So I probably get some of the most rewarding moments from that. And then just general kind of seeing people improve. That sounds really cheesy, but not necessarily like their technique improve, but improve through adversity. So like we've got students that, when you'll see them go from when they first come in, like Luke's a prime example, right? When he first came in, I hope I don't mind me saying this, but he's like overweight, massively overweight, not that confident. Come in, he's an absolute savage now. Yeah.
Great jiu-jitsu.
And like amazing jiu-jitsu, gives anybody in the gym a run for the money, including me. And to sort of have been part of that with somebody is
to be responsible for it. I mean, obviously that person is the person who's made that change. Excuse me, but without this academy and without your support and instruction, that probably wouldn't have happened because there's a reason why it hadn't happened up until that point, right? So you should be proud of it too, man.
That's good.
What about the flip side? What's the toughest thing about running the academy?
See, I like running a business. I don't mind that, but I'm not the best at kind of sales and customers. I'm all right. I'm all right teaching, and I'm personable with people. But the kind of
is that the thing you hate the most about all your responsibilities, the sales bit? Is that the thing you dislike the most?
Because I don't know. I feel I don't. I want people to come in and just fall in love with jiu-jitsu for how we fell in love with it. But the reality of it is we're providing a professional service, and ultimately now with the schedule that we've got, you can't dedicate the time to new people coming in, as in just to come for a trial or to look around, and also dedicate the time to everybody that's on the mat. So we're very pulled between the two, and you can't do both brilliantly. So we've got a program manager, Jack, starting shortly, and he's going to be kind of my wingman in that domain, and means then that I can just give everybody the best that I can of me when I'm teaching. I don't have to worry too much about kind of going through the fine particulars of everything. That isn't because I'm frightened to do that, or I'm ashamed of our kind of pricing structure and stuff like that. It's just kind of, I'm a bit like, oh, this is jiu-jitsu. How did you find it? By the way, this is how you sign up, where some people don't want to know, go through everything. And
it's knowing your strengths and weaknesses too, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
like knowing what you're good at. You're great at jiu-jitsu and you're great at sharing that experience, but perhaps sales isn't things. I know that's not my strengths. But it's the chicken and egg thing. And again, people who don't run academies like this don't really get it. But like, you need to grow enough to be able to employ those people who are better than you at doing what you do.
Yeah.
Unless you've got a load of money to throw at it. And we haven't, right?
No.
Like, we're growing this organically. So there's that balance. You've got to grow enough and do all that work and do the 90-hour, 100-hour weeks, which we do. And then hopefully you backfill your stuff that way, right?
Definitely, yeah. I think as well, I'd like to get to a point where when Jack comes on board, that I can coach all of the classes that I'm scheduled in for coaching. And then I can also sort of strategically help run the gym while he does sort of the day-to-day stuff. And then I can also focus on my own competitive sort of endeavours, which is what I want to do for the next sort of 3 or 4 years, is try and...
Yeah, what's your plans for that?
Well, actually, I always felt like through pursuing my career in construction and then building this place, like you said, when you were a purple belt, I never felt like I really gave myself the proper run that I wanted to. So now, once Jack comes on and we get back to sort of normal training properly, I'd really like to kind of get competing a lot more regularly and try and, shoot for British Masters gi and no gi at IBJJF. That's what I want to do before I'm 35.
Nice.
So that's my goal.
Are there any non sequitur? But are there any things going on in the jiu-jitsu world that you see that you quite like the look of, or on the opposite side that you're like, I don't know why people are doing all of this? And that can be anything, like people instruction-wise, technique-wise, trends, anything.
I think that the amount of online instructional content that there is now is amazing, and I think there's some really good people that put stuff out. My only advice on that is that you can have information overload. So I think I've got sort of some students that are like, I've got like 8 instructionals, but sort of you can only really learn one thing at a time, can't you? You've got to take that in. So I think unless you're sort of, instructionals are brilliant, but if you're not disciplined and dedicated to committing that information, it's not yours. You don't buy an instructional and then plug it in like the Matrix and then all of a sudden you're really good.
That'd be good, wouldn't it? That's a good
would be
business
good.
idea.
Yeah.
Neural link, Elon Musk.
So I think that's really good, but people should also remember that, it is it's a marketplace. So people are putting out more and more content all the time to get you to spend your money, which is great. But
you listen to this too.
Ultimately,
we need to just mix our thing together, because I actually do stay on one instructional for a very long time.
Yeah, me too.
And do it for a long time.
You like your instructionals though, don't you, mate?
Yeah, well, someone's got to teach me jiu-jitsu, mate.
That's harsh. That's very harsh. We'll pay for that later. We're rolling after this.
That's funny. But yeah, no, I think that, and then I like a lot of the stuff. So one thing that I think is really good is the Who's Number One stuff that's coming out. That's all. I always get really pumped. I don't really follow UFC anymore, so that's the kind of thing that I get excited about. And they're putting out monthly events. They're really kind of professionalizing it, which is good. So I like that as well. I think the UK scene as well is getting a lot more kind of professionals. People like Liam doing Pantheon, which is good, and I've been a part of that. Polaris.
Still growing, isn't it? Jiu-jitsu still feels like it's growing. I think I feel like there'll be a point where perhaps, like a tipping point where jiu-jitsu kind of saturates the market. It's not mainstream like football or rugby or cricket, or it's not in the British culture like that. And I think I'm not sure it'll ever get there. I wonder at what point that happens, when there's from a business perspective, so many options that then it becomes, you can't grow. Do you think that'll happen, or do you think it's just limitless? Like, where do you see it?
No, I don't think it's limitless, because I think that you basically, every time you're teaching a student that evolves to the rank of black belt, you're putting yourself in a position of growth anyway, because most people like that I know, that I was a black belt with, have gone on to start their own schools. You've done it. We didn't stay here together. It kind of goes like that, doesn't it? So maybe
it's more the customers. It's more like how many more people are going to fall in love with jiu-jitsu? Like, I just don't know.
Right. Well, I think the sustainability of jiu-jitsu, if you are doing it as a full-time job in a professional academy, I think that you've probably got a limited pool of adults in your catchment area, and you're probably going to, I don't know what it is for us, but we've got a number on our books that's like, right, we get to that's what we can facilitate. But I think if you aren't putting a considerable amount of effort into putting a comprehensive kids program in place, you're kind of ignoring the sustainability of business, because there's always kids turning 4 and 5, and parents are always wanting to get them involved in something. So I think that when I left my job, that was the one thing that kind of like when I was working and then doing this on an evening, that's like one of the ways I convinced Rebecca. I was like, look, if we can leave now just with adult members, like, I think if I'm putting 40 hours a week into trying to build a kids program as well, then we should be okay.
Say my slight concern. It's not it's concern. Maybe that's the right word. I don't know. It goes back to your point about the instructional. I think as jiu-jitsu, the martial art becomes more popularized and perhaps mainstream. The concern I have is that jiu-jitsu schools may pop up like kind of karate style schools with less kind of focus on the lineage of the instructor, because they've just picked up some stuff online, or they've kind of moved around a bit, and therefore then the instruction's not as strong, and then it kind of dilutes it again. That'll be a worry for me. It kind of gets almost too big, and then the quality dips.
Well, I think that's where you just have to differentiate yourself as like being synonymous with a quality gym. So like for us, like from the very beginning, I've always been very careful about, who's taught our classes, what kind of stuff we've taught, tried, even when it was a small thing on a mat, and I always ran it like it was, or tried to run it like it was a professional academy, like it is now. So it might not have looked like this, but every class was ran as if I was teaching it to an academy of 300 people running it a full-time job. So I think you're right. There's the risk that, people have misinformation. So you might have another school pop up, and, not that there's anything wrong with a blue belt teaching or having a school, but then they come and they're like, I should go there, and there's one there and there's one there, but it's not offering the same sort of quality of what you're doing. But then it's our job to to show people what we're doing is relevant, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think there's still also like a lot of growth to be had if we look at like how much it's growing in America, where like we've seen Professor Piano, he's got like 40 black belts within his own school or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like, whereas now most schools will have one black belt, a handful of black belts, right? So I think their schools are still growing, right? So it's only suffice to say that you'd think here it would still grow for the next however many years until you've got however many black belts on the mat, and it's still growing, right?
It definitely. I mean, like, I don't think of this place as being limited to me. Like I have students like Luke, like Jack, that we talk about the future of like when you guys, at that level, maybe not even black belt, but purple belt, brown belt. I want to be able to offer them a real opportunity to have jiu-jitsu as a career. So if I can do that, and it means we grow, and we can impact more people in the area, teach more kids, teach more adults or whatever, but these guys get to teach jiu-jitsu full time, then that's
It's a viable option now, right? Like it wasn't
100%.
years back when we started. It wasn't really.
No.
It was a more hobbyist type thing.
Definitely, yeah.
But now, yeah, for sure.
think-
Hopefully it will still grow.
Do you think? So it's a question for you, but like when we started, there was a lot of nostalgia attached to jiu-jitsu. Like it was this underground. Like you felt like you were one of the early adopters.
Yeah, well, we were.
You know, and now it's kind of like this on-trend thing. Does that take away from you, or like take it away from you?
We've spoken about it, haven't we, on a couple of podcasts? Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely something that's not quite the same. Is that I think it's a great thing that more people are impacted by it, more people get to do it. Selfishly, it's not kind of like it used to be. There was this kind of like secret underground club that we knew about and no one else knew about, and that was kind of cool to be a part of. But that's a selfish thing. That was just like for us that we had that.
Yeah. But you can't do what we're doing now.
I won't go back.
And have that, can you?
I won't go back because you know it was limited. You know,
Yeah.
the instruction was limited. You know, Tom did a great job, but he was trying to seek out information. You know, and driving 2-3 hours. We were driving down to Victor's for 2 hours, whatever. You used to drive for the 2 hours to come to class every night. I remember that. So I wouldn't go back to how it was, but I think you know, everyone talks about the good old days, but I think we have experienced jiu-jitsu in a different way to many other people because we've been around for so long. We need to remember that and try and give a little bit of that.
I'll tell you what though, the
message to other people.
The quality, like it's a very romantic memory in one sense, but I know now what, and you know, this isn't to take anything away from Tom because Tom did an amazing job, but the information delivery and the consistency and the structure in the way that we're delivering it now, how we're doing it and you're doing it over in Leeds, the students are developing a lot faster than what it took us.
Yeah, but this is the point I was trying to make, mate. So that's a good point to kind of dwell on there. That was the point I was trying to make about jiu-jitsu becoming too big, right? And all these kind of satellite schools popping up, if that happens. Because I have members who've come to train here who go to other academies in our city, in Leeds, who get that sporadic teaching from random people with no program and no structure, no curriculum happening right now.
Yeah.
And they are not, and they've arrived in our academy at a certain level, and they will very quickly be surpassed by other students of ours who've had that specific curriculum program. So that's the worry, I think, that jiu-jitsu, unless it's in a structured program like Gracie Barra, doesn't offer the same experience.
Yeah, and what's interesting, and I've chatted with a lot of my friends that are no longer part of Gracie Barra, and they're like, oh, the curriculum, I think. I try and explain, like, it's not a box that we're confined to. Right? A curriculum's just a structure, it's a word, but it's like people get turned off by it. Oh, you're not telling me how I'm going to teach jiu-jitsu. We don't get told how we have to teach jiu-jitsu. You know, the instructors, me and Mike aren't sat watching a thing because we don't know how to do it and then go and do it. You know, it's not like that. It's, you know, you don't send somebody to university before they've completed secondary school. So for me, I just think it's about checking the ego really and just thinking, you know what, I'd love to teach what I'm best at all the time and the fun bits, but actually the curriculum says that this is what's best for somebody when they first come in. And it's right. Yeah,
and I bet that if someone came to like your week 12 class taking the back from Turtle today and they came to mine, there'll be the same kind of theme but slightly different emphasis on certain grips, and you do it your way and I do it my way, and that's the beautiful thing about it, right?
Yeah.
Well, let's hope that, you know, well, if you're listening and you are at a school and you're not getting structured, well thought out, well produced instruction in a beautiful academy, you should go find a school that's giving you that.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're at a school and you're paying to be a part of that school, it's not a boys' club, is it? You know, you're not turning up, and if it's open mat every night, you know, that might feel good. But I've had people inquire here that have said, you know, we've been told about Gracie Barra, there's a curriculum, blah, blah, do I have to buy a gi? That's like usually the first question. But where I'm training, basically I turn up and it's just open mat all night, so I don't feel like I'm getting taught anything. Can I come and see what it's about? They've come down, they've joined in a class, even like attended some of our Zoom sessions to see how I was teaching and what kind of stuff we're doing. I was like, oh great, I feel like I've learnt more in a lesson there because you've actually taught me something. I haven't just been beaten
Yeah,
up.
we've had that,
For an
mate.
hour.
We've had people who've trained for multiple years.
Yeah.
Who've come down to 2 classes and gone, man, I didn't even know this. And it's like super basic stuff. They're like, and it's like, you've been trained for 2. How's no one ever taught you that's what you do there? Yeah. But it's because they've been doing just what they're good at for so long.
Do you know what I found though? And this is, you were chatting about when did I grow into being a coach or a professor or however you want to call it? When we first aligned with Gracie Barra, so before that we were probably teaching here for about 18 months. Excuse me. Jeff and I we were sporadic. We would just come down. It was for me and him to train really, and for other people to come over, and we were just gradually building it up. Then we affiliated, and I sort of said, look, if we're doing this, I'm going to do it properly. And we was like, right. And actually teaching the curriculum made me go back and be like, wow, I need to kind of plug some of the gaps in my own game so that I can actually teach all of this stuff. It's not that you didn't know it, but refresh, because you don't do it. If you're just doing the stuff that you want to do all the time on people that aren't as good as you, you're not really developing, are you?
No, it's that kind of teach once, learn twice kind of adage, right? It's good to break it down to a granular level and then remember all those details of why, because every single, and we try and get this across to obviously all our members, I know you do as well, every single thing that we teach you or tell you has a purpose. Yeah. We're never going to ask you to do some of that for no reason. Every grip, every foot position, every hip position, and that's like that deep dive into jiu-jitsu, in my opinion, is what makes it so beautiful, like the technical element to it. And that's what allows someone our size to dominate and beat someone twice as big, right?
And then it all changes when you have to teach kids. Still the same thing, but you have to learn a full new teaching style.
Yeah, you do.
Just to finish up then, Lewis, for you, what does it mean to be a martial artist?
For me, what does it mean to be a martial artist? I think it is just a lifelong pursuit of being better for me. So not necessarily like trying to, competing's part of it. I like to compete, but I'm not doing it necessarily because I want to be a world champion. I'm just doing it because I like to set myself challenges and see whether I can achieve them or not. So I think, constant evolution, really. It's not sort of being the best fighter in the room. Do you know what I mean? It's deeper than that, isn't it?
Yeah. Just before we finish up, mate, just wanted to make sure that everyone who is listening, if you're not watching this or listening, if you are in the Harrogate, North Yorkshire, kind of North Leeds kind of area, you should definitely come check this place out. 100%. The best, one of the most beautiful academies, I think, in the UK. Gracie Barra or not, it's just a beautiful place to be. And I think, we've spoken, Lewis and I, obviously we're very close friends, spoken about potential options in the future for us to work really closely with Gracie Barra Round Day and Gracie Barra Harrogate, particularly on the competition side. So if you are kind of one of our members from either side, there's some really exciting stuff coming up in the next 12 months.
Forward to it.
Happy days. Cheers, Lewis.
Awesome, guys. Thank you very much.
Bye. See you guys.